Hello and welcome to the Block Explorer. I'm Colin Brightfield.
Hey folks, I'm Cash Upton.
The Block Explorer is here to educate and inspire you about the world of crypto and NFTs.
We'll do deep dives into critical concepts for understanding what's happening and discuss the current events shaping the space.
We're making this podcast for the curious, the free thinkers, and the change makers that propel us forward.
As we embark on our adventures, remember that none of this is financial advice and crypto can be risky.
In this episode, we discuss our predictions for the crypto and blockchain space in 2022 and what crypto will bring to the world in the new year.
What a year 2021 was.
It was an amazing, wild year for crypto, and it looks like 2022 is going to be even more amazing in all sorts of ways. What do you think, Cash?
Agreed. We saw the rise of NFTs and, just really taking over crypto coming into the mainstream. We saw legislatures on the U.S. Senate floor talking about cryptocurrency jargon that really, brought a lot more people into the space this year.
Yeah, and if you want more of a recap of what happened in 2021, you can listen to our previous episode where we recap everything that happened last year. And in this episode, we're going to go into the predictions. So let's kind of go over some of our major predictions for the year coming up, and we have some good ones. So we'll start with you, Cash. What do you have slated here for coming up?
Well, what feeds all of our souls, right? Music. And we're going to see some big music happenings in the NFT space. Royal.io is going to be launching a Nas, 2 songs from Nas, and turning them into NFTs and being able to fractionalize the ownership of that. So music and fractionalization of NFTs, I think, is going to be something that's really big on the horizon.
Yeah, I agree. Music and NFTs combining together to create new possibilities and new business models. And we're seeing that, right? You just mentioned Nas doing that with Royal.io, but then we also have another example with Audius, which is a streaming service and creates like a fluid payment stream for artists and musicians. And I think we're going to see also at the live music level, at events and things like that, we're going to have more of a crossover with NFTs being combined with live music events, artists using as NFTs as merch, and this kind of co-ownership that can now happen with songs between the artist and the supporters or the fans.
Yeah, what I really love about this is it's described as a street team type aspect. So if anyone's done music promotion or concerts, the street team is who has the flyers and goes out and spreads the word and gets the community involvement about the music happening or whatever event's going to happen. And by allowing the fans to actually own a portion of the song, the fans are directly benefiting when that song gets popular and gets mainstream or gets put into movies or commercials or whatever streaming revenue. So it's going to be a really cool way to see more engagement with the artists' specific communities that they have.
Yeah, I agree, Cash. And I think, even a step further is we've seen artists already kind of doing this. Deadmau5, an EDM artist, did this at one of his events at Red Rocks in Colorado, which is one of the cool events that had an integration. And I think we're going to just see more and more of NFTs becoming part of the suite of things that musicians offer. And maybe it's not their whole thing, but I think, it's going to be hard to escape. You're going to see, I think we also saw Ozzy Osbourne is releasing some NFT things. So this is just going to be a trend that continues more and more.
Ozzy's was kind of cool. He's going to have like a scavenger hunt all over the world where people can go and like look for these like hidden NFTs and their bats related. So anyways, that's, Ozzy's, wonder if it was his idea or he has a really smart marketing person on Millennial.
Yeah. Well, speaking of NFTs, I think another layer with NFTs is going to be the crossover of DeFi, decentralized finance, with non-fungible tokens, NFTs. So this intersection where you're going to have kind of more financial type of type of derivatives applied to these high value NFTs or even just different NFT collections. So we already saw the beginning of this with fractionalized NFTs. So you can take an NFT and split it up into X amount of tokens and then sell those tokens, and people can kind of co-own the NFT and participate in the upside. But those were kind of just very basic because you could only really just kind of trade those as like financial instruments. But I think you're going to see, NFTs being used for collateral, different derivatives based off of certain collections. Bitwise is launched an NFT fund that just invests in the top 10 most valuable NFT collections. So like CryptoPunks, Bored Apes, Fidenzas, and things like that. So I think the sky is the limit now that NFTs have really demonstrated their value and their adoption has fully happened. So I think now the next step is DeFi taking NFTs and getting weird with them and experimenting with these new kind of products where you can tokenize the art, but maybe also have different functions layered in between that.
Absolutely. And, we're seeing this in a similar way. It's not an NFT, NRC 721 token, but there are tokens that are being leveraged on DeFi platforms and other blockchains for sustainability aspects. And we saw it with the Regen Network and KlimaDAO, where they're actually tokenizing carbon tons and locking up tons of carbon onto the blockchain, and then being able to leverage that and incentivize sustainable practices. And then, like you said, maybe be able to take a loan out or get some leverage against those specific carbon token credits on the blockchain. And we're really excited. Next week, we'll have the founder of Loa Labs, who's also the director of marketing for Regen Network, Dave Forston, on our podcast. So we're really excited to interview him and do a deeper dive into the sustainability benefits of blockchain.
Yeah, so I think that's another trend that we're going to see too, is more of this intersection of blockchain and climate initiatives and this narrative of crypto for good, because there has been this antagonist narrative of that, crypto is bad for the environment. And so now there's been a lot of work done and people are finding different ways to apply blockchain technology to create a public ledger that tracks carbon credits, that tracks environmental initiatives, and rewards users of the network in some kind of token. So there's new kinds of ways to apply these coordination tools, essentially is what they are, to climate initiatives. And I think that's another trend that kind of hinges between, DeFi, I think NFTs and blockchain all kind of combine to create these new kind of markets now that you can have for these climate change initiatives. And like KlimaDAO is one of the examples that comes to mind.
Exactly. I think we will see that narrative shift away from 2020 crypto for financial bros and Bitcoin being the only thing. And then, 2021 was NFT heavy and there's DeFi. Now we're going to, like you said, see an intersection of all of it coming together and actually being able to do some really good things for, social and environmental justice.
Yeah. And I mean, let's stay on the NFT train for just a little longer. I think one other aspect of the NFT narrative that's going to be big in 2022 is social media gets NFTified even more. So you're going to see the combination of NFTs mixed with Twitter, which is they already announced that they're doing an integration that verifies your NFT. That's your profile picture. If that's your NFT, that you own it, to set it as your, you can kind of have like a blue check mark type of deal. But I think beyond that, we're going to see more and more NFT profile pictures just around the whole social media world, whether it's on Instagram or YouTube or Discord or Twitter, wherever it is. And I think celebrities and athletes are just kind of getting started with the whole thing. I think it's just started to really pick up and hit a tipping point. But I think in 2022, I think we're going to see pretty much almost every major celebrity and athlete is going to have some kind of NFT crypto profile pic soon.
Still
And
got my still got my Bulls on the block.
nice. That's great.
Still
Right. So
bullish.
you never know. Right. So yeah. So I think, social media just continues to become a place that people share their NFTs. There's more integrations that will happen with NFTs. And I think we might even see some NFT native social platforms that get created that are kind of like more of a hybrid of like a OpenSea time mix with like an Instagram.
Yeah, Colin, what's your thoughts on DeSo, decentralized social media?
Yeah, so that's a good segue. I think that's another big theme of 2022. We're gonna have a lot of experimentation in that space. There's a blockchain decentralized social app called Yup, where you're influencing curation or rewarded with tokens. So it's kind of like attention tokens, and that's just a new one that just launched, I think this year. But I think we're going to see more and more of that kind of stuff happen, especially as when you see things like Facebook take people, or Meta, take people's, handles like Metaverse, or you see, you know, different people get banned on different platforms for different things. And whether you agree with their politics or whatever, what they're saying, there's just the censorship in general. I think people are kind of waking up to the fact that Web 2, can censor you all the time at its rented land, and people are looking for alternatives.
Yeah, you don't own your tweets or your Instagram posts.
You don't own your handle. Yeah, you don't own any of that.
I know, poor Metaverse gotten ripped off by Facebook. Speaking of Metaverse, that's going to be a big place that people are hanging out in 2022. We've seen a lot of integrations with in real life and the metaverse, like the Blank Souls sneakers, where they're shipping you real sneakers, but then you also have these really cool sneakers to wear while you're in the metaverse. And what do you think? Like, are people going to be going to concerts in the metaverse?
Yeah, I mean, the metaverse is here to stay. I mean, it's only there's different, you know, conceptions of it. I don't necessarily think it's just always just this virtual reality world. I think it's more of this crossover between physical goods becoming more digitized, and like kind of like the Internet of Things, this kind of idea. We're already kind of seeing it with wearables for fitness, with like Apple Watch and all these kind of fitness things that people wear now. So we're gonna just that's kind of that's the metaverse kind of part of it too. I think is like we're tracking all of our physical data, on our watches 24/7, and we're looking at that stuff on apps where you're sharing that with friends. So I think, and then we're going to see more of the digital world become, more like the physical world, where we have property rights. That's already happening. So we have a flow of value. You can make money in the digital world now. That's like legit, and you can bridge that money back to the physical world and use that to pay for things. So there's this harmony of value exchange that can happen using crypto and blockchain tools, that's allowing for this kind of convergence. And I think that's a trend that we're going to continue to see, whether or not, people are spending time walking all around wearing, virtual reality goggles or not. I'm not so sure that's really what I would define as like the ultimate metaverse. But, definitely having these spaces built out online where you do have that option, right? I think it's kind of like this hybrid world where if you can't be there in person because you live far away, or you can't travel there for some reason, then you can attend to these events virtually, and there'll be a lot of other people who are doing that too. So there is kind of this community that gets created around that, and that will be part of it too.
Yeah, especially with COVID making a lot of music festivals stay at home and people watching concerts from their living room. I think you're right. There will be that hybrid. I really liked what you said about the Apple Watch. Like, you're doing something in real life, but then it takes that data and then it puts it up onto social media. You know, you share what you do on Strava when you go for a run or something, and that is that bridging of in real life and digital social.
Yeah, and that's just like a really simple example, right? But that's like something that we already are doing, and we don't really think twice about it now. It's very kind of normalized, but that's something that, like, you know, 20 years ago when the internet was first coming out, and 1999 and 2000, um, that wasn't something that people would have thought like that they would have been like really like wanting to shit. That wasn't like even like on top of mind for anyone, you know? So it just goes to show like how these things can like turn. And like now we're not even thinking, yeah, like, of course you wear your Apple Watch and you share your workouts and you have like a community around fitness and stuff. And like that's like this that's a basic kind of exchange where you're digitizing this physical stuff, and then there's real value that's being created there because you're kind of you're sharing with your friends, you're kind of getting this social flex. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see some kind of businesses pop up and tokenizing the fitness kind of aspect of the metaverse that you can kind of create with these new fitness monitoring tools.
Sounds like a good segue for the cultural aspect, right? Like you're saying, everyone's coming in, celebrities, athletes, music festival type stuff. So we're seeing a lot of different crypto conferences, right? You're going to one in February, right?
Yeah, well, I think ultimately we're going to see just more of our culture get cryptofied. And we've already been seeing this with the amount of musicians and athletes and celebrities that are getting famous NFTs and putting them as their profile pic, changing their name on Twitter to a .eth address in ENS, in Ethereum name service domain name. And I think we're only going to see, now that we have the ability to have conferences again, I think that crypto festivals and culture are going to converge into these big events, where it's going to be the most sought after, trendiest cultural events, coming up in the 2020s, I think are going to be these crypto conferences, because they're not even just conferences. They're like parties. They mix celebrities, athletes, artists, technologists, investors, coders, all these different people come together, DJs, everything, DJs and DJs, they all get together and they all talk about crypto, and they all kind of, it's a very much like the Renaissance, right? Where you have people from disparate industries, different fields that maybe don't really talk that much, right? Like, when do like coders really hang out with like athletes, and when do artists really hang out with investors, unless there's like art collectors. But so you have these like kind of unique combinations of fields coming together, and people with very different perspectives and different skill sets, and they're all coming together and making these really cool things, very much like the Renaissance, where you had all of a sudden these new kind of opportunities were created by the ability for people to not necessarily have to work the fields. Now you could have a merchant artisan class emerge, and now artisans, you had an artisan to artisan economy. And now that's what we're happening with cryptos. We're having this renaissance of different kinds of creators and different places in, where they add value in the economy, all converging around crypto and using that as a tool to make new opportunities.
Yeah, the Renaissance is a really good connection with what's going on. What are some of the crypto festivals you're most excited for?
Yeah, we're calling them festivals.
Yeah,
they're not conferences; they're festivals.
Yeah.
No, so there's a bunch that I'm excited for. So ETH Denver is happening in February. That's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, that's in Denver, and that's more of it's a very much of a community focused event. And there's a hackathon that starts off the event, and then there's a keynote weekend, and then they even have a retreat weekend in Breckenridge that the following weekend after that. So it's like a nice like R&R after the festival to decompress and maybe even go snowboarding or skiing. So I might stick around for that. And then there's Permissionless in May, which is put on by Bankless with also the Block Fly people. And that's happening in Palm Beach, Florida. That's going to be amazing.
Then there's an Ape Fest, right? You had to have do you have to be an actual member of the Bored Ape Yacht
Yeah,
Club? You
so
have
I
to
was just
own
put
it.
that I put there. Yeah, that's a really good example of, these new kind of events that are popping up, and that's where, it's a you have to hold a Bored Ape to go to that. And that's like these kind of new events that are happening around these NFT communities. And that's what I was kind of talking about. It's like, well, now these NFT communities are going to start holding festivals and conferences for holders of, that are, exclusive for people that are in their NFT community. And that this is just the very beginning of that, where I think we're just tip of the iceberg. I think this is actually going to be almost how a lot of culture is going to become organized around these NFT communities or tokenized communities.
Yeah, wow, that's a real expensive party to go to because the floor price right now for Bored Apes is 68 ETH times 3,400. That's a good $220,000 festival party.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think it's a cool idea, but my brother made a good point. He was saying, like, when you don't even know any of these people. I mean, maybe you meet them in Discord and stuff, but you don't really know what it would be like to hang out with any of these people. I mean, I guess you would assume that it'd be fun,
They're all
especially because
Bored
Ape
Apes.
Fest, because like, well, with Bored Apes it'd be fun because there's like a lot of celebrities and athletes, I guess. But I don't know. Not everyone really. Some people care about that kind of stuff. Some people don't. Um, who knows? I think I think it attracts a certain kind of person, and some people actually criticize like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and that it's become just kind of like this like really exclusive, like, look how rich I am kind of club now, or kind of thing where it's like, I mean, they're so expensive that, it's like the average person can't afford to spend that much money on one. So it's like now it's almost like this symbol of like the being elite now. And so I don't know that, I don't know if I agree with that, but it's because a lot of people that just bought them when they were cheap and then they were just have done really well for themselves. So
Right.
it's not just like rich people buying in, but I think ultimately this is what humans are going to do with anything like that. We're going to recreate like these like exclusive like clubs and things.
Yeah. Well, I think this just hits home on the point that NFT ownership of a certain collection will allow more access to special events. And that's what this party is. And ETH Denver even has an aspect to that with their Bufficorn. So we'll see more and more of that in the years to come. Speaking of years to come, what's the lookout for ETH this year? Ethereum. We have some big events on the horizon. We got the merge coming up.
Yeah, the merge I pretty sure is going to happen in 2022. And the merge is when ETH moves from proof of work, where you have mining happening, to proof of stake, where you switch to a validating system. So we're going to have no more issuance of ETH since mining will become obsolete. So that should bring some price momentum to Ethereum. I mean, if supply and demand still function in crypto at that point. So because that'll make ETH. So right now, right. So every time a new block is mined on Ethereum, there's an issuance of more ETH, but then we also burn some ETH because of the transaction fees from gas. But when ETH switches to proof of stake, now you don't have this issuance. So then ETH will become deflationary, meaning less and less ETH will be in existence. So that should create some price pressure on ETH and bring the price up. But either way, go ahead.
Oh, and then just also the staking is that drastic reduction in energy consumption, 99% less. So better, much better for the environmental aspects of crypto.
Yeah, it's a much better way to do things. So I mean, yeah, that's the bigger point here. Maybe not so much is what it does to the price, but that's part of it. But it's also just the tech. It's a huge undertaking. It's probably one of the biggest. It's the biggest update in the history of Ethereum, and it's taking a lot of effort, a lot of time. There's some testing that's going on right now on some of the test networks, and people are some people are saying that it's going to happen in Q2. A lot of people are kicking around like July, August. Um, I don't know if I'm not going to put a date on it. I just think it's going to happen next year at some point.
This year.
Oh yeah, this year, I guess
Oh,
technically.
2021 on a piece of paper today. It's okay. So, okay, let's dive a little deeper into Ethereum though. So we will also see rise of layer twos and sharding, which are already coming onto the scene, but we're going to see them get adopted and integrated into apps a lot more. Can you tell our listeners what they should expect with that, Colin?
Yeah, so we're looking at more layer two solutions for Ethereum as we scale, as Ethereum starts to scale. So we already have, some of these that we're familiar with are Arbitrum, Optimism, Loopring. More of these are going to start to launch. Polygon is kind of maybe included in there or not, but more of these layer two solutions will come online, and not only that, will there'll be some nice competition between them. So it's going to accelerate innovation. There's one of the great things about layer twos is you get the security of the layer one Ethereum with the cheaper fees on a layer two. So it's kind of like a nice best of both worlds. So I think we're going to see more adoption happen with this. I think, gas prices are only going to get more expensive on Ethereum as time goes on. So it's going to just create more incentive to move to L2s. But I think a lot of people are really kind of incentivized by tokens. And a lot of these layer twos really need to launch tokens in the next year, in this year, to get, I think, more kind of focus and a narrative. And people really love a token. People love to rally around it, and it creates a community. And I think we're going to probably see some token drops from some of these layer two solutions as well.
Yeah, that's definitely a good way for participation and also appreciating the users, which is what crypto is really good at. Currently, Ethereum layer one before rollups was 15 to 40 or up to 60 transactions per second. Rollups are going to let it get up to 1,500 to 4,000. And then with the next step, which is called sharding, it'll go up to close to 100,000 transactions per second. So with all of these additional, exponentially more transactions, I think because of the supply and demand, there'll be more block space available. I'm hoping that, we will see gas prices level out, especially because people will be on layer two.
Yeah, no, we'll see a big improvement in the gas prices on layer twos for sure.
Do you think that layer twos becoming more of a thing on Ethereum will take away from some of that market share that got bleeded out from Ethereum this year because of the high gas fees? I'm thinking of, other blockchains like Solana and Avalanche and the ones that, pride themselves on super, super cheap to little to no gas fees.
I think other layer ones are going to continue to get adoption. I think Solana continues to do well. I think Avalanche does continue to get adoption. Phantom comes to mind as well. I think, there's going to be different product market fit, and as more and more people come to the crypto world, not everyone is going to necessarily care as much about decentralization as some other people, or they might just not have that understanding. But I think what ultimately is going to matter is just, what the culture is like on different chains, what different chains offer as far as the different products, what they solve for people, how easy it is to use them. I think it's going to come down to a lot of these things is the user experience, and like the average user doesn't care if they're using a layer two Ethereum or they're using a different layer one. They just want to like press a button and like get some yield or trade some coins or get an NFT.
Play a
They
game.
don't want to they don't want to think about all these things. And they don't necessarily need to understand them. So that's the thing. It's like, well, so then it just comes down to what is going to be like a better product. And obviously, I think that it's really important in Web3 to have decentralization for sure, and I believe that. But I don't necessarily think that everyone is going to just like do their homework or necessarily have the enthusiasm for decentralization as much as like they want convenience. So that's something I think that developers, have to keep in mind when they build their products. And I think we're going to see a lot of competition in the next year as we do have this layer, at least all these different layer ones vibing for, vying for space and market share. Plus we have layer twos with Ethereum, and we have this whole kind of narrative of modular blockchain versus monolithic blockchain. So I think we're going to continue to see that narrative play out and see some great innovations. I think it's just going to keep driving innovation in the space. One thing I also think is some other layer ones are going to get it kicked out of the top 10 market share coins, like Cardano, ADA, and XRP. I think those will get overtaken by some of these other layer ones that are kind of coming onto the scene.
Is this a good time to do a little predictions as we were talking about competition?
I want to touch on a couple other things. I think, overall, just related to this is like, overall UX gets better, wallets get better. I think, wallet tech is another big theme for the next year, and as well as smart contract wallets. So these are wallets where you can do functions right from the wallet. So you could trade like on Uniswap, you could deposit funds into a liquidity provider. You could do, staking or farming, all this just right from one wallet app with like one click actions.
So it's almost
right? Like just kind of like that Venmo smooth experience where you can just hit one button and just like zoom, got that.
Like bringing the browser integrations into the wallet.
Yeah. Like so you don't have to go anywhere. It's just one app you open up and you can do all the things you want to do in DeFi or with Aerith NFTs just in this one app. You can deposit your money. You can do, it needs to be that like that simple. And I think we're going to get there. Maybe, I think we're going to see some good products come out in the wallet world this year, as well as, integrations with social more as well. I think we're going to see like kind of like, Venmo, you can like see who sent money to who, and, you can put a little emojis or whatever in their little, memo. Not everyone's going to want to do that, right, with all of their transactions, but I think we're going to see some version of that, maybe with some kind of wallets, and maybe some people do want to do that. I don't know. I think we're going to see some cool experimentation with wallets in general. And then connected to this is the whole bridges part.
Right, where maybe it's not going to matter if you buy that NFT on Solana because you're going to be able to bridge it over to Ethereum.
Yeah, so bridges are important because bridges help you get from one blockchain to another blockchain. They like to bridge your assets. So if I have my assets on Ethereum and I want to take them to Polygon, which is a different blockchain, I have to do a transaction where I move my ETH or whatever, my USDC from Ethereum to Polygon. And that costs money, right? Because that costs gas because it's a transaction. Or if I want to go from Polygon to Solana, I can also have to go through a transaction. And there's bridges that do that. There's different apps that live on the blockchain that do this, and they connect with different blockchains, and they allow this transaction to happen. As we get more and more chains, as we get into a much more vibrant ecosystem with lots of different chains, different layer ones, different layer twos, all this kind of stuff, bridges are going to become a lot more important. And I think we're going to see the ecosystem get more competitive. There'll be more innovations there. And also bridges can also be a point of vulnerability, because sometimes some bridges have a multi-sig that's not very secure or something like that. So you do want to be careful what bridges you do use. So I think this is actually kind of a good thing in general, because just because now we're going to need more bridges, I think bridges in general are just going to get better. The tech's going to get better. They're going to become safer to use. And I think even eventually cheaper too.
Yeah, and with that infrastructure, we'll see more on ramps too. We're seeing more direct from fiat straight to wallet on ramps for taking your currency from traditional means straight into a crypto or even straight into a layer two without even having to go to layer one Ethereum.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Cash, is that we're going to see, if you from Coinbase, you can maybe now, instead of just going straight to, only Ethereum or Bitcoin's chains or Solana's chains, you can go from Coinbase to like an Arbitrum or to an Optimism. And more and more of these integrations just across the ecosystem or on ramps that bring you straight to any kind of layer one or layer two that you want. And you can so you can take your dollars in your normal bank account and drop them into a multitude of different chains at the click of a button. So I'm looking forward to that because that sounds nice. I think one other thing that I think we're going to continue to see happening is meme coins. I don't think those are going away. I think the memification of the economy is here to stay. The whole Wall Street bets, GameStop, GameStonk culture, the whole aping culture, DJing culture. That's just part of the culture now, and it's kind of what continues to drive it forwards. Actually, because it's around the edges, that keep pushing what's possible with different tech, and also just showing the weaknesses or the exploiting the arbitrage opportunities essentially. So, that's kind of how capitalism works is that opportunities get discovered and people take advantage of them. And then that's how we like create more innovation. So I think we're going to continue to see just meme coins are not going away. I think people will be surprised at, how they just random ones continue just to pump out of nowhere. We saw the gas DAO launch, and which was just how much gas you've paid, you get a certain amount of tokens. Right. You could claim, and then there was Open DAO, which was tokens that were based off your activity on OpenSea. So this is just two the different kind of random DAOs that are doing weird things that have popped up.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, for our listeners who haven't heard that yet. And they really have come into the spotlight. Like we mentioned on our last episode, they tried to buy the Constitution. They're helping get Ross Ulbricht, founder of Silk Road, out of jail. And there's just going to be, all these use cases where it's not just like a corporation on the blockchain, but they're actually coordinating between humans. It's all coordination that you can do. And that's a really cool thing because that's how problems get solved.
Yeah, I agree, Cash.
I'm thinking price prediction.
Yeah, let's move into it.
So let's just give our listeners a little bit of a look at what we saw over the last 2 years. Let's start with Bitcoin. January 2020, 2 years ago, it was at 10,000 USD. A year ago, January 2021, it was at 30,000 USD, and it hit a high of 69,000 in 2021. Colin, what do you see for Bitcoin in 2022? At the end of this 2022?
Yeah, at the end of this year, I see. Well, I'm not sure what it's going to be at the end of this year, but I just think in this year it's going to hit at least 100K at some point. Maybe it doesn't finish the year up there. Maybe it finishes a little bit below that, but I think we're going to definitely see it break the 69K all-time high that it's set this year in 2021. What about you? What do you think it's going to be at?
I mean, it's easy to say, but I agree. 100,000 is a real nice round number. I could see it going more, actually. I mean, if we see more countries with high inflation or weaker monetary tools and policy, then I think we're going to see more and more global citizens storing their wealth in Bitcoin. And as that happens more and more, I could easily see it actually gain to 120,000 this year.
Yeah. I mean, I think I could definitely go higher than that. I wouldn't surprise me even if it gets close to 200K, but I just don't necessarily see that that's highly likely. but I do think it's highly likely that it does break 100K at some point in the next year. I don't know if it stays above that though.
Yeah, agreed. And just like we saw in the last few days, we've seen a pretty big dip in the market, and that happens.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the future price of Ethereum? We want to backtrack. Let's backtrack to what it was before.
Yeah. So ETH in December 31st, 2020 was $737. Man, I wish I was around then. And January of this year, we're hovering between 3,700 and 3,300. What do we see the all-time high was this year, Colin? It got up to 4K, over
It was
4.
4,869,
Right.
I think, is the all-time high that it set this year.
So I'm super bullish on ETH. I believe it will be at 100K, not at this year's end, but it will be getting there. This year, I see it getting up to a nice round number of 14,200.
Right on. I think ETH is going to have a good year. I think the merge is super bullish for it. I think it definitely breaks 10K. I wouldn't be surprised if it hits up to over 20K at some point. And then I don't know if it finishes the year that high. I think it maybe has a nice top over 20K and maybe settles down around like 15K. I like where you're at, 14. I think around there, maybe that's where it finishes the year, around there, like over 10, but maybe under 20K where it finishes the year. But I wouldn't be surprised with the merge. If and what happens, it kind of, I think also a lot of this depends on what happens on the bigger macro scale with the economy. But the merge is just a really bullish narrative for ETH. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that, what it means, and how they're literally using, and it is to be more like ETH is just not going to be created anymore. So I think once people really start to wrap their heads around that, and they just see the supply of ETH just going down, 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 and the demand starts to go up, up, up. I mean, it's hard to envision a world where it doesn't go up.
Right. Especially because Bitcoin's whole store of wealth is that there'll only ever be X amount of Bitcoins. What is it, like 21 million?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So people know there's a set amount of Bitcoins, and that's why people can have faith that they're not just going to, create a whole bunch more and destroy the value. And so the fact that Ethereum is moving to deflationary it's really, really incredible.
All right, let's move on to our last prediction here, which is on Solana.
Yeah. So Solana, man, I wish I bought more of that earlier this year. It was hovering just over $4.20 in January of last year, a year ago. And we saw some pretty high spikes. It saw it get up to $250 back a month or two ago. And it's down closer to 150 right now. But I can definitely see it gain up to $1,000 this year.
Yeah, Solana's had a great year, along with all these other layer ones, alternative layer ones. And I think Solana definitely gets into the $1,000 range this year as well. I thought it might even hit over $500 this year, but it kind of got slowed down in that, like, yeah, I think it would max out at like 250 or maybe a little more than that. But yeah, I think Solana has a great product market fit. I think people, it has a community around it, so I can see that moving into the number 3 slot in overall cryptocurrency. I could see it overtaking Binance coin, which I think is the number 3 asset right now. I think Solana moves up into that spot.
Yeah, agreed. And really excited to get some Solana interviews happening, get some developers. There is a lot of developers happening. I know we want to ask your brother to be an interviewer, guest of ours, because he's doing a lot of building on the Solana chain.
Yeah, one way to get a really good insight into what's happening is talk to the developers, and you also follow the developers. Where is the development happening? Where are people building? Why they like building there? Because developers aren't going to build on a chain they don't see a future in. they're not going to build where would, you're not going to build your house, hopefully, on a lot where you see like, you know, erosion happening,
Right.
right?
Right.
You're going to build your house on a place where you see a nice future, where you can build a future. So, um, we're looking forward to having more developers on the podcast this year. We're just excited that we're shifting gears into having more guests on in 2022, and we're excited for a great year of sharing more insights on the space with you.
Let's jump back to Bitcoin and Ethereum real quick. Colin, can you tell our listeners what the flippening is?
So the flippening is when the market value of Ethereum overtakes the market cap of Bitcoin. So the market cap of ETH becomes more than the market cap of Bitcoin. That's called the flippening. It's pretty famous in crypto circles. Some people say it's inevitable. Some people say it's not going to happen ever. It depends who you talk to. But I think that we could see that happen this year, because the bull case for ETH is pretty strong with the merge narrative. If that holds true, and Bitcoin continues on its kind of like slower pace, where it's kind of slowed down compared to ETH recently. So I think we could see the flippening happening this year.
That would be a holiday miracle.
Yeah, whether it holds it, that's another thing too. Maybe it flips it for like a short period of time, and then like ETH price drops or something, and then it's not quite flipped. I think in the long term, I think maybe the flippening happens long term. I think that definitely happens, but maybe in the first time it flips it, maybe it doesn't hold it for a long period of time. Like it could be like a spike where the ETH price shoots up and flips BTC, and then there's a price drop. Who knows? I think one theme overall too that we didn't hit is that 2022 is going to be volatile. I think we're going to in for a volatile year as far as price movements, as far as news cycles. It's an election year, and I think that's also something to think about. When we think about regulation and the government, and there's this whole narrative with the Fed becoming more hawkish, and maybe going to do some interest rate hikes because inflation, and the whole inflation narrative, and they think the economy is running too hot. But I think if the economy starts to slow down, and just like with this recent market crash we just had because of the minutes that came out and things like that, I think maybe we might see a softening of language from the Fed, actually, because in an election year, like they want the economy, like, the administration, like the Biden administration is going to call the Fed and be like, okay, look, we need you to like not be so hawkish on the economy and on interest rates, because it's crashing the market and I'm trying to get reelected. Because if whoever is in control of the government when there's an election year and the economy is not doing well, they get destroyed.
Yep. Agreed.
So I think we're going to see a pretty wild and volatile year as far as prices and news and culture. So strap in. It's not going to be boring. It's definitely not going to be boring for sure. And maybe all our predictions are going to be completely wrong. So make sure that never this is financial advice.
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded our listeners this is all predictions and not financial advice.
Yeah, I guess there was one more I missed that I want to just quickly touch on is the OpenSea and NFT marketplace. So it has over 90% of the market share of NFTs. So it's like, it's like the eBay of NFTs, right? So if you want to buy an NFT, sell an NFT, trade NFTs, it's all in there. I think they're ripe for disruption. I think the fact that they're kind of going the IPO route, they're more of a centralized company. They're not doing a token, which is like the crypto native thing to do. I think when they do the IPO, I think they're going to alienate a lot of the crypto people. That's why the OpenDAO kind of even started and launched this token. So I think there's going to be room in the space for a more decentralized crypto native marketplace. And there's things that OpenSea does well, there's things that they don't do well. So I think there's also, it also would just be bad for the space if we just had one major monopoly player like OpenSea controlling the NFT market, kind of like how Amazon just like runs like online e-commerce now. It's like we don't want to have like an Amazon, because Amazon, you know, and they're centralized too. So it's like we don't want a centralized company being the number one thing really in Web3. Do we really want like a Web3 the most profitable like unicorn company is a centralized thing? So I think
not when it was made to go against centralization and that power control.
Yeah, right. So it's not as congruent as could be. So I think there's definitely and GameStop actually announced that they're launching an NFT marketplace. So, but you know, they're a centralized company as well. So I think, you know, a decentralized version or just different versions of OpenSea, wherever they fall on that centralization, decentralization spectrum. But I think, you know, a protocol that's kind of has a token that, you know, people can trade, and there's like a DAO version of an OpenSea, I think is on the horizon.
Yeah. What's one of the decentralized marketplaces right now that our listeners can maybe go check out?
Zora, Zora. That's a good solid one. Well, you have any more predictions? Anything we missed, Cash? Anything you want to slide in?
Not for this episode. I think we covered it all. I'm excited for our next episode, which is going to be a weekly news discussion. So I think we'll save the rest for that.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, we'll wrap it up then. Thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode.
Thanks for exploring the blockchain with us.
Crypto is changing the world. We're here to ensure that you're ready.
Please remember that none of this was financial advice, and please subscribe, share this podcast with your friends and coworkers, and please do leave us a review.
We look forward to sharing our next episode with you.
Cheers.
Cheers.